Hey guys, you're with DJ Nathan, and as you can tell, I have not fully recovered my voice, but I'm not going to let it slow me down. There's some stuff I wanted to talk about, and one of those things is volunteering. I want to give you like my life as a volunteer. Whenever I hear someone talk or when I read anything, I always have this sort of like self-check or what I call a healthy skepticism about what I'm taking in. I think, what is this person's experience, and is there a motive, behind what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, and to try and sort of balance my intake of information, because there's just so much of it out there, right? So for your healthy skepticism, I wanted to provide you with a little bit of my experience. I'm going to post everything below, all right? But I just wanted to tell you a bit about my life as a volunteer. When I was a kid, like even from a very young age, I had a very strong sense of fairness and justice. But when I got into high school, that was when I really started getting active. And my school had a World Development Organization. And one of the things that we did in that group was travel to the Dominican Republic. And it was just an educational trip. We didn't do any work, any missionary stuff. We were really there to learn about what life was like for people in another part of the world, and specifically to learn about what life was like for people who were supporting our consumerism. We lived with families there, and we went out into the fields where they were, hacking down sugarcane with machetes, and we went into barrios and saw what people were living like just to support, our sweet tooth. And it was pretty horrifying, to think that our buying habits would produce that result for other people, in another part of the world. So that's been a real cornerstone of my education and of my experience in, social issues. One of the other cool things that I did in high school was a co-op as an administrative assistant with the Red Cross Society, and it was all paperwork. It was like, there's nothing thrilling about it, but it was really, really interesting just to see how much paperwork is generated, in a nonprofit organization, and all of that, and like who has to deal with that part of things. Like when you get up in arms about something, you want to go and you want to do something, you're all riled up, and what about the people who have to file paper all day? Because that's definitely something that someone has to do. So that was pretty neat too. I've done a lot of, bits and pieces for different organizations over the years. I've done, sorting donations and fundraisers. I've hosted fundraisers and, collected various things and done food drives and soup kitchens. So there's been a lot of sort of little things over the years, but a few of the sort of bigger consistent things that I've done, well, I sat on the board of directors for an AIDS organization. Let me tell you, that was really, really cool because it functioned in a fairly rural community, and the main focus of this organization was education, and it was a necessary thing because this community was still very much stuck in a mindset that it not only wasn't a problem, but that, it didn't even really exist. And there are a lot of misconceptions about what AIDS was and how it spreads and what it does and how, how it affects people. So they're really focused on educating people about what AIDS was. And so that was, really cool experience too, sitting on the board of that AIDS organization. I have also volunteered in the special education department with a life skills class in a local school here in my community. And that was basically just to sort of supervise on fun trips and, get involved with the students and that kind of a thing. But what was really neat about that was seeing how this school took what is a fairly regular program in a lot of schools here anyway, where I'm from. Most schools have a special education department or group, and this school, they're really devoted not only to teaching and supporting students in the program, but also integrating them into the larger student body so that other students can really get a sense of what these challenges are about and reduce the stigma against special education in general. And that's been just an awesome experience to be able to work with kids. Like for me, if you're not a kid person, don't get involved in volunteering with children. But for me, like I have 3 children of my own, and you know, I really love kids. They're just, you know, it's really invigorating to work with children, so I've really enjoyed that. I've talked a little bit about in my video 16 and Pregnant, my story, and 16 and Pregnant, what to do in resources. Check them out if you haven't, go have a look. I've talked a bit about the presentation that I've done to high school students about what it's really like, you know, in real life for a teenager who's pregnant, you know, going through a pregnancy and raising a child, and you know, all of the various things that go along with that, being a teenager. So that's been part of my volunteer experience, something that I started just last year actually, and that I'm continuing on, and that those videos will be sort of a, you know, a tool in that as well. I also work with an organization and helping to you know, rebuild women's lives when they've come from you know, family violence. And so my role specifically, I mean, I've done a lot of special events with this, you know, one organization, but I've also been a mentor to women who are coming out of situations and then trying to rebuild their lives. And that can take on a lot of different aspects. You know, different women need different things to try and rebuild their lives. But because of the experience that I've had in my life, it just gives me an education that I need to look at what these women may have gone through and what it's going to take to reclaim certain things that they've given up over the years, that they've lost, you know, in relationships where violence has been committed against them and their children. So that's been a really, really important thing that I've done over the past few years as well. I've also done a lot of workshops and seminars. I've heard various people speak over the years, like Stephen Lewis. I've seen him a couple of times. He's just awesome and really inspirational speaker. I've had the good fortune of hearing Ralph Nader speak. I've been to, you know, different protests and rallies. I was just thinking, you know, with all the stuff that's going on at McGill, I was thinking about how much I'd love to be there, but you know, being at the Quebec referendum rally back in 1995, that gives you some sense of how old I am. That was a totally wild trip, and I can't possibly talk about all of that here, but that was a, you know, really neat experience. But I've done a lot of different things like that over the years as well. I've studied a lot of different things that have, you know, really contributed to my role as volunteer. And, you know, I've mentioned that in my little bit about education, my education as well, but I've studied psychology is so interesting to me, but sociology as well. Social problems is sort of a specific, you know, domain within sociology, and I've studied that with really, really keen interest. But peace and conflict studies, which is still a relatively new kind of field in some universities, has been, you know, it almost made me want to switch my major, taking peace and conflict studies. It's just that enthralling for me. But I've also taken women's studies and religion. I've had a religious education. I'm not, I don't practice any particular religion, and I'm not baptized, but I did go to a Roman Catholic school all the way through. So I've had, you know, sort of a Catholic education, and have, you know, I feel very lucky to have had that, to have sort of like the inside scoop on a religion, even though I'm not a particularly religious person and I don't have a specific denomination. And that's, you know, a real fortune for me to have. Like, religion just dominates so many spheres. I think it's really important to look at various religions and how they impact the way that we interact, and the conflict that arises out of religion as well. I think that that's as much as I want to talk about right now. I'm going to post all of this stuff below, and I would really love to hear about your volunteering experience and what you're passionate about. What issue do you feel is at the forefront of your mind in your life? What should we pay more attention to in the world right now? So outside of the news and the media and like all of that crap that's going on, like, what is it in your life that you feel like you want to devote more time to? Post that below, and I'll definitely, like, I'm super quick about responding because I really feel like it's important to engage. So please feel free to post your comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe on your way out. Check me out in all the various places that I am. That's expanding all the time. We're really excited about it. I hope that you are too. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again really soon.